Hi, and welcome to your first lesson on crime and punishment around 1500 to the present day. This is Unit 3 of the History specification. It's the biggest unit. It's worth around 30% when examined. It's also the biggest exam. Now, I'm just going to take you through the spec before I start Lesson 1. There are still 7 key questions, the same as Unit 2 USA, the same as Unit 1 DWR. There are still 7 key questions that you need to get through. However, on this exam, which I will also show you in a second, there are 6 questions. So the first key question is causes of crime, looking at the causes of crime over time from Tudor period to today. The nature of crime, so what were they, is key question 2. How law and order was enforced is key question 3, so looking at the growth of the police. Methods of combating crime, what types of method did we use to actually combat crime and stop criminals? Key question 5 then is attitudes to punishment. So we start looking at how people felt about punishment and what they felt should happen if someone committed a crime and how that attitude has changed over time. Key question 6 then is methods of punishment. So we start looking at actually how people were physically punished, ranging from capital and corporal punishment in the early Tudor times all the way up to prison and reform and the reform system that we have today. And then key question 7 is a study of historic environment, and we specifically look at the China, a place in Merthyr Tydfil, in the 19th century. So that is our specific study. Now in the exam, as I've said, it is the biggest exam. You do get 15 extra minutes compared to the other exams though. So this is a 1 hour and 15-minute exam, and there are 6 questions. The first one there is a fill in the blanks, you can see. This one looks at 2 sources, but it's more so source extraction. It's actually only worth, I think, 4 marks, this one. And you use sources A, B, and C to identify one similarity and one difference in the nature of crime. So it's quite a simple question there as well. Lots of explain and describe questions in this one. Question 3 is a describe. Question 4 is also a describe. And then you've got your bigger questions at the end, 2 12 markers. So explain and how significant, very similar like questions. And then of course your big essay at the end, which again is worth 19 marks, but 20 marks this one is worth, 16 and 20, and 4 for spelling, punctuation and grammar, excuse me. So this one is a very big one as well. The same as with the other ones, I would probably suggest that you start with this question. So getting on to the actual lesson itself. So this is lesson 1. So we're going to look at changes in crime and punishment from 1500 to present day, and key question 1, causes of crime. So what have been the main causes of crime over time? That is our overarching question. And within this key question, we look at the growth of economic pressures in the Tudor period, religious change in the 16th and 17th century, the pressures of industrialization and urbanization in the 18th and 19th century, 20th century pressures like changing technology, and the growth of terrorism in the 21st century. Now, all of the key questions, bar key question 7, you'll see that they're in chronological order, So whereas with America and Depression War and Recovery, the entire course was sort of chronological, each key question in Unit 3 has sort of got its own little chronology. So we go back to the start of the time when we go back to each key question. So causes of crime in the 16th and 17th century then. So we're going to try and define key terms associated with crime in the 16th and 17th century, and we're going to try and identify and rank the causes of poverty in the Tudor period. So, what is a crime? Have a little think about that for a second, and what do you think is the most common type of crime? So, laws exist to protect people, to give order to our societies and prevent harm. A crime happens when a person breaks a law. So, when a person breaks the laws that we've established in society to try and protect people from harm, that is called a crime. Petty theft, like the stealing of clothing, food, or small sums of money, has remained the most common type of crime from 1500 to the present day. So petty theft, stealing small food, small sums of money, that has actually been the crime committed by most people from 1500 and is still in 2022 the most common type of crime. So what do you think then, using the images in this diagram, were the motives for crime during this time? So I want you to have a little look, pause the screen, and see if you can work out what I mean when I'm looking at these pictures. So what actually were the causes of crime during this time? So hopefully you've paused the screen and we can start going through them. So greed was one, desperation, people with nothing, lack of employment, poverty, a massive causer of crime, religion and politics. These are the main things that caused crime during this time. So Which section of Tudor society committed the most crime, do we think? So at the top there, this is how Tudor society looked. This is sometimes referred to as the Tree of Life. You had royalty at the top, and this had been the case for about 1,000 years, 500 years at this point. Royalty at the top. So you can see there Queen Elizabeth at the top, and then noblemen underneath her, wealthy merchants, landowners and lawyers beneath them. Beneath them skilled craftsmen and traders, and then beneath them peasants and beggars, the people that didn't have anything and were homeless and didn't have any kind of job or any kind of income or any source of help, really. Now, vagrancy, which I want you to get down in your books, please, is the condition of a person who wanders from place to place, homeless, without regular employment or income. Sometimes referred to as a vagrant, a vagabond, or a rogue. So if you see the word vagrant, vagabond, or rogue, this is what we mean. Okay? So who were these poor? So there was the impotent poor. These people that were genuinely unable to work due to age, hardship, some other ailment. It was recognised that these were in need of poor relief, so that these were in need of help. And the able-bodied poor. So these are people that are considered capable of work, but were either unable or unwilling to find employment. They're encouraged or even forced to find work to prevent them from resorting to begging, which was actually illegal as well. So the impotent poor, people that couldn't work, the able-bodied poor, people that could work or forced to work. But of course, employment wasn't very good during this time, so it was very difficult for these people to actually find work. So if you could copy this down into your books as well, please. So there are economic pressures in the Tudor period. You can see from the graph that different periods of time actually experience different types of hardship. One thing that is abundantly clear is that the prices of things were going up while wages weren't really going up that much. So what I want you to do is analyse in this graph, I want you to think about what period of the Tudor period experienced the biggest difference in prices and wages. Why do you think this was? What effect might this trend have had on criminal activity, do you think? And do you know which Tudor monarch actually reigned from 1558 to 1603? So have a little go at that, maybe Google it, and I will find out and pause the screen and answer some questions. So hopefully you've done that now, and you've worked out that actually Elizabeth I was the monarch that reigned the longest during the Tudor time. She reigned for around 45 years, and she was the longest reigning and some argue most successful monarch of the Tudor period, but there were massive economic pressures during her time as well. So what I want you to do now is, attached to this PowerPoint on the study zone, this should be a Diamond 9 sheet. What I would like you to do is look at the causes of poverty and rank them from most important to least important for me. So these are all things that cause poverty, and I would like you to rank them for me, please. Okay? Justify, if you're finishing,